I want to welcome everyone to the Hemophilia Council of California's webinar, Advocating for Your Child in a Changing School Environment. I'm Lynn Kinst. I'm the Executive Director of the Hemophilia Council of California. Thank you for joining us for this important topic. With that, I would like to thank Takeda, who is our 2020 webinar series sponsor, and we wanted to get started today. So if you're anything like me, I would imagine that most of these items here are things that you have felt and are continuing to feel as we think through what the school year is going to look like. There seems to be a lot of competing concerns that we're all facing in terms of we want our kids to be in school, we want to make sure that they're getting the best education possible, but we also have a lot of health concerns. There are concerns for our educators and their safety, and there's just a lot about this current situation that's very difficult. When COVID hit our nation in the spring, I just don't think most of us expected that it would still be with us through the summer and into the fall. But we're sort of starting to come to realize that this is going to be with us for a while and that it's adjusting how we are living. Many of us as parents are struggling with balancing health concerns and educational needs, along with all of our own work responsibilities. And the question of how and when school is going to open has been weighing heavily on all of our minds. I think we've also probably all seen that the debate about these topics has gotten pretty heated on the online space, and as people express their opinions. So our goal today is to try to understand some of what's going into the decision making around us as school administrators try to decide about the opportunities and options that they're going to be providing this fall, and to help you as parents be informed and engaged in that process in a productive and valuable way. The council's goal is always to help folks be strong advocates for their own educational or medical needs. And so we welcome this as a good and healthy dialogue on those topics. So to start us off, we'll go ahead and open it up to Marina. Marina Ibarra is the social worker from Valley Children's Hospital. So we look forward to learning from her expertise.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. And that was wonderful information, Micah. I even learned from that. And I really appreciate the going directly to your school board, that advice. I did never think of that. So everybody right now is faced with this really difficult decision, all parents, with what to do in regards to school. What goes into making that decision, I think? I know that some districts are saying we're doing all online, and some are giving options. So I think tough one to make. And so just some things to consider when thinking about whether or not to send your child back to school would, of course, be what is their health history. So the health history of your child, and then that of the family members, your immediate family, and thinking that through in terms of if they are exposed, what would that look like? Also, what academic supports does your child get typically in school? And then also if they don't go, or if they do online learning, distance learning, are those going to still be there? And then if they go into school, what will that look like in terms of safety? So that's talking specifically about 504, IEPs, special day program. If your child's in special day, that's another thing to consider as well. I think districts are still trying to figure this all out. And so there might not be any immediate answers, but just jotting down all your thoughts in terms of all the questions you have. And like Micah said, attend those union meetings and be part of the process, I think is very important right now. I know with my kids, we never really were engaged until now because we have so many questions. And so we've been, doing the Zoom union meetings and things like that. So I think staying informed definitely is important. So we'll talk real quick on the next slide about 504 plans and IEPs. If your child does not have one, this is a real quick explanation of the difference between the two. So a 504 plan is accommodations needed for students with disabilities. And that does include children or students with hemophilia, and they would fall into this category. So what it does is you would meet with the school nurse and the administration, and the teacher. You would be able to say, what does my child need in order to be safe at school, basically? What does it look like if they get an injury? What needs to happen? Who do I call? All of those things would be incorporated into that plan. Sometimes if they have a bleed and they need accommodations in terms of a wheelchair or things like that, those are all things that can be discussed and put into the plan. An IEP is specifically for learning related disorders or disabilities. And so if they're having trouble with retention or comprehension or reading or speech, those would be typically put into an IEP. And so if your child has those needs, as well as needs for accommodations for their hemophilia, it would all be put into the IEP plan. You don't necessarily need a 504 and an IEP. So that's the two differences. How do we start that process? So if you feel like your child, if you don't already have a 504 plan, I recommend it because it's a great communication tool between the parent, the school nurse, and the teacher in terms of injuries, anything that your child experiences outside of the classroom, student aids, new time aids, things like that. It's a great way to communicate what's needed. If they fall and hit their head or they twist their ankle, things like that, what should be done and who should be called. So number one, and Micah said this as well, you want to put it in writing. And so I have a sample letter, what your letter could look like in terms of requesting a 504 IEP, and Lynn will send that out in her email. But you want to do the request in writing. And so that you'll provide that to your school, to the principal or the school psychologist, or if it's a 504, you could give it to your school nurse. They tend to, depending on the school district, but I've noticed that school nurses typically take the lead on that, on 504 plans, especially if there's a medical component to it. So you want to do it in writing. You want to say why. You need to be pretty specific in terms of what accommodations your child needs and what do you see in terms of their learning. What are they having trouble with, and why do they need, or why do you feel that they need modifications in their day or accommodations in terms for them to get the best learning experience? Basically, what you want the school to do is remove barriers to their learning experience at school. I included this because I feel like the Hemophilia Federation of America has great information in terms of school forms and things for families to help advocate or be a support in terms of school. So they have a great toolkit. And I think this form here is really great because it explains what to expect. It kind of takes you through the process of, does my child need a 504 or an IEP? And it takes you through what to expect in terms of after you've submitted that request in writing, where does it go from there? So Lynn will also send that out in her email. Tips for parents: after you've done sent in your request, you'll want to follow up. Because I do hear back from some parents that, I haven't heard anything, or I did, but then they never got back to me. And especially I think in these times, because things are so uncertain, and if we're doing distance learning and everything's online, it's going to be even more important to follow up. So a typical response is within 2 weeks. I think that it's important to realize too, though, we are kind of in a different time and in a more stressful time. So you might want to ask, when should I expect to hear? Is there a delay in processing these? Which there shouldn't be. It should be important. But if you call in 2 weeks, then get a timeline in terms of when do you think I'll hear back from you in regards to this. Also be organized. Have a folder or a binder where you keep all the information if they send you a letter or if they call, or they need certain documents, keep all school documents together is probably the best for your child, and keep a well-written record. So anything else that's, if you are denied, they say, well, I don't think he qualifies. Ask them for that back in writing, because like Micah said as well, that then they'll have to give you a better reason than just he didn't qualify, or instead of the IEP, we'll do a 504, or different things. They need to give you an actual reason as to how they came to the decision of denying your child, either to be evaluated, sometimes they won't evaluate, or they'll evaluate and then say that your child doesn't qualify. And then it's good for you to also look back and go through and see if you agree or don't agree with that. So a paper trail is very important. It's always good when you go in for your comprehensive visits, either biannually or annually, to ask for a quick update from maybe in writing from your HTC in terms of, are there any changes? Typically, we get a lot of requests at the beginning of the year, especially for 504 plans. The school wants an update. Is there anything new? Is there anything we need to be aware of in terms of his health and care and safety there at school? Last thing I like to encourage parents to do is empower your children, which is to have good communication. I think at this time, with all of these stressors in terms of COVID, it's really good to talk to your child about what that looks like and kind of what's going on. We don't really know what's going to happen with school. Let them tell you their feelings in terms of how they would feel to go back to school, and how would you feel if you stayed home. Just opening it up for a conversation, because most likely they're having feelings. And so it's good to just open that up and let them know that, you know, you're keeping informed on the latest news, and, you know, that their safety is the most important thing. Also, in terms of when the children, if they do go back into the classroom, it's always good to, everybody's at a different developmental stage, but as much as possible, understand their diagnosis, recognize signs of bleeds, and educate them on how to take care of their nosebleeds. Also, I didn't put that in there, but knowing that if they feel a certain way, they should be going to the nurse, because sometimes the noontime aides or the teacher will say, you're okay, so-and-so, just sit down. And so it's good for them to know that, no, you know, they should be going to the nurse because of, you know, their condition, reminding the teacher. As much as possible, it's good for them to know the plan, because then it can help a little bit when the teachers forget, or the noontime aides might not know. And so it just will help in that process. And I think that's all I have. I wish everybody luck, because this is a very stressful period of time. And I think we just have to wait and see how it'll all play out. But any questions, I'm always available. Lynn's going to send out some information. There's also one other thing that I asked her to send out really quickly. It's also from the HAFA, which is my bleeding disorder. And it's a really great form that you can go through and fill out and give to your school nurse, give to the teacher about your child's bleeding disorder. I think it's a really great communication tool. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Marina. That was super helpful. As Marina said, we're going to gather those documents that she gave us, so that if you need to access any of those or want to share those with anyone, those will be available to all of you. Up on the screen, we have some upcoming webinars. Those dates are there, August 20th, September 17th, October 15th, and November 19th. And then our Health Policy Summit will be on August 14th. And then our Connections Conference, which focuses on gene therapy, will be November 17th. So I thank our participants today, Micah and Marina, for sharing such great information, and also to our sponsor, Takeda, for making the webinar series possible. And thank all of you so much for joining us.